Hare Krishna. Welcome to our conversations, our discussions. My name is Savyasaci. I also go by the name Savya the monk. Today I'm talking about the broad goals of human society. I will specifically begin with the goal of karma, which means sense enjoyment. Of course, it is said in the Vedas that these four goals are Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. They are called the Purusharthas, the great goals of human life. So we will analyze this in the coming videos and try to understand how we can maximize on the human form, how we can attain the goals of human life, and also see the gradation between these goals. Ultimately, we want to understand the greatest goal, which is Prema Pumathamahan. It is said the greatest goal is love, love of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the eternal and undying quest of all living beings. So, calm. Calm means sense enjoyment. We know of Kamdev, who is Cupid, who facilitates especially amorous types of enjoyments. But sense enjoyment, sense pleasure is a natural position because we have this body. And this body means the senses, the eyes, the tongue, the nose, the ears, the skin. All of these are knowledge gathering senses. We find out about our environment, especially the external environment, through these senses. There is also the inner sense, which is the mind. And the mind is like the switchboard where all the information comes through and it is then sorted out and ranked for action. And what is the sorting mechanism of the mind? It is based on what sense pleasure it will give. So the better the sense pleasure, then the higher it is prioritized for action. Higher than that is the intelligence. The intelligence is meant to discriminate. Should we do this or should we not? And the intelligence of a human being especially should be far-seeing. What will be the consequences of these actions in the short term and in the long term? In human life specifically, and especially in the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, it is that one should consider that the next life should be auspicious, should be a life which is free from the miseries which are present in our current life. So calm, sense enjoyment. Natural, the senses want to enjoy something. And so now we have to understand how to enjoy according to Dharma. The scriptures acknowledge the need of enjoyment. It is stated that all living beings, all souls, are Anandamaya Vyasat. They are pleasure-seeking by nature. We want Ananda. I will introduce the difference between happiness and Ananda, or Sukh and Ananda. So Sukh is happiness. It is compared to the light of a candle. And Ananda is compared to the light of the sun. So there's a vast difference between what we are made of and what we desire intrinsically in Ananda and what we are getting or experiencing in the form of Sukh or Sukha, what the senses can bring in our conditioned state. The senses are naturally intertwined with the objects of the senses. Outside of us are form, which the vision is trying to capture. There is smell, which the nose is trying to capture. There is sound, which the ears wants to capture. There is sensation, which the skin is trying to capture. The tongue is trying to capture ras, or taste. So in this way, the sense objects are always attracted to their matching senses, and the senses are always attracted to their matching objects. This is the natural position of embodied life. Now, to prioritize the senses is to neglect the self. To understand the need of the senses with the need of the self, the soul, is what human life is offering. So the scriptures are regulating the senses. How to engage the senses in karma or activity that is not binding. How to avoid vikarma, which is sinful, or activity that deviates us from the goal of life. The material world which we live in is an expert, brilliant arrangement of material energy to advertise all sorts of enjoyable things. And our economies are built on advertising and marketing. And in this way, we inflate the value of sense enjoyment, neglecting the fact that even though one may try to enjoy as much as possible their senses, they are only getting a limited amount of what is their true need. Remember, we are the soul, Anandamaya Vyasat. The senses are our tools. So, Dharma informs us that we should be desiring a simple life and higher thinking. Higher thinking means we are able to contemplate true knowledge. True knowledge says, as Lord Krishna discusses in the Bhagavad Gita, that the wise does not engage himself in the sources of misery, knowing that they have a beginning and an end. So he doesn't. Why? Because Ramate Buddha, the intelligent, he knows that the pleasure of the senses is adyantavanta. Adi has a beginning, anta it has an end. Therefore, he doesn't invest too much in that. Simply wants to keep the body and soul together, but he understands a higher goal. We're discussing calm. Just picture the world around you, right? It is saying to you, you want a good life, don't you? You want to enjoy. You want to live comfortably. Oh, this is wonderful. To want some comfort, some enjoyment, this is natural. Go for it. Go for it. But in our pursuit of this good life, of sense enjoyment, we are getting the reverse. Reminds me of Arjuna. Arjuna is saying, I see only sources of misery, Krishna, in fighting our relatives. Nimitani viparitani. That there's one desire for one outcome, but then the experience is that we're getting the reverse. So the material world is like that. That there's a lot of hope which is sold to us via marketing and advertisements, or by just our own desires and daydreams and fantasies, that we will usher in unlimited happiness and we will ward off all suffering. But we find that the opposite comes. Here's a little exercise. I'll take you back to when you were in primary school. In primary school, you thought that once you get to secondary school or high school, life would be much more enjoyable. But when you got there, didn't you find that the schoolwork became more challenging, the hours became longer, the school bag became heavier, and then you thought, well, now I'm living with parents, maybe when I go to college, then I will enjoy life. In college, you find that no more mama's cooking and no more teachers to encourage you about your schoolwork. It is all now on your shoulders. And those in the colleges and the universities are thinking, once I'm done, once I have my degree and I get my job, I'll get my own apartment, I'll be happy there. I will enjoy. Didn't you discover that paying rent every month, dealing with your landlord, if you get a house, the mortgage, to furnish your apartment, to furnish the house? So what I'm pointing at is that the happiness that we long for always seems to be moving away. It always is a few steps away. And sometimes when you do capture it, those moments of euphoria, of perfect sense titillation, all they do is that they create a type of greed within the heart that you want more. And so you try to do the same thing again, only to find that you don't get the same result. It is similar to one who is drug addicted. In the initial stages, the drug gave such a wonderful experience, never before felt. And then the individual is chasing that feeling, only to get what is called the law of diminishing returns. More and more, that feeling is not attained, but the body becomes addicted to that chemical. And instead of getting pleasure from that substance, it is now back to sukha, which is just temporary relief from a suffering condition. So the body is craving for this, and when you give it, you relieve it from that craving, that suffering condition, and that relief is taken as happiness. And while that is being chased, a lot of our life may be falling apart. But most of you may not be at that level of drug addiction. We can just be addicted to our tongue, addicted to our ears, to our skin, to what we see. We want to see beautiful things, touch soft things, hear beautiful sounds. And in that way, we work to attain such sense pleasures. But that is not the highest goal of human life. So now I'll enter into the second phase of the goals of life. To get sense pleasures in this world, we require artha. Artha means money. Haven't you heard that money is sweeter than honey, brighter than the sunshine? It is said to acquire money, human beings are even ready to risk their own lives. Consider people who work out in the middle of the ocean on some oil rig, those who dive into the ocean to get some sort of treasures there, those who are in the military, in the police departments, in the fire departments, risking their lives, mining, to get some sort of money. Why? Because I will be able to enjoy my senses. I can also take care of my family's senses. So money, or artha, is seen as a key that will open all sorts of doors of sense enjoyment. What happens is that in that desire for calm, sense enjoyment, then artha is pursued. And then the philosophies of beg, borrow, or steal start to creep in because one has become a servant of the senses. Somehow or the other, by hook or by crook, get money. We see that with money comes also a psychological dependence and addiction, which means prestige. When we have money, we feel ourselves prestigious. We find that people tend to respect those who possess money. But it is not that they respect you as an individual, but they respect what you can provide in terms of your monetary position. So we see that even the richest of the rich are still working. They don't seem to be satisfied. Some time ago, Warren Buffett was asked, at that time he was one of the richest men on the planet, if not the richest. They said, "Sir, what is your philosophy? Tell us, what is the secret to your success?" He said, "My philosophy is more. More." So the senses never become satisfied, no matter how much sense inputs are put there. Therefore, there's always a need for more. Krishna describes it to be like a fire which is fed with fuel. Therefore, that is called lust. Lust of the senses, lust of the mind, lust of the flesh. Where no matter how much more we supply, still no satisfaction. Remember, we are not this material body, we are not this mind, we are not these senses, we are the spiritual being, the consciousness, Ananda Maya Vyasat. That spiritual particle requires a different set of sense pleasures. So money, we want to acquire money, but to acquire money in a dharmic way is becoming very, very scarce in this world. So when we are not satisfied, although we have money to supply sense pleasures, then we think, well, maybe I should get into Dharma. Dharma is religiosity, or to learn the higher codes that regulate the activities of man. So we go to God. He's the richest. He's the most knowledgeable. Maybe if I follow the laws, then he will supply my sense enjoyment. Then he will allow me to get a break and make the finances that I want. So the motivation also to follow Dharma becomes spoiled by the motivation of enjoying the senses or serving the addictions of the senses or the desire for accumulating wealth. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks 4 kinds of people who begin to render devotional service. He talks of the Ato, the Atati, the Jnani. So Atati, one who wants financial gains. Or the Ato, the one who is distressed. So because of these reasons, we may approach the platform of Dharma. If we get what we want, then we stop aspiring for something higher. Hey, I went to God, I went to Dharma, I got what I want, therefore I go back to the goals of karma and artha. But if we don't get it, then another aspect comes up, which is called moksha, liberation. Then people feel frustrated completely with this world and they think, stop the world, I want to get off. They want to stop their existence, and if they don't have proper knowledge, they may aspire for some voidistic goal, to become zero, to become nothing, nirvana. Or they may think, I want to merge with Brahman, merge with the light, become one with that eternal existence and enter into an eternal holiday. Remember, Ananda Maya Biasat, and Ananda is also an aspect that is there in relationship, in exchanges. We are social beings. So even that position does not last. Therefore, the soul again may fall down into samsara. But when we get proper knowledge, we understand that mukti or moksha is hinyatwata rupam, swarupena vyavastiti. That mukti is to be reinstated in one's original position. What's the original position of the soul? Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. The Jiva Swarup or eternal position, constitutional position, is to be Krishna's Nityadas, eternal servant of Krishna. And that service relationship is nothing like the service we are rendering the senses and the mind, personal senses or extended senses in terms of our bosses and our politicians. But it is a natural reciprocal relationship where the source of all ananda, happiness, Krishna, is giving participation to the individual soul in that ocean of ananda. So mukti is discussed to be of 5 categories. One is this sayuja mukti, which is merging into the effulgence of the Lord. So the higher classes of transcendentalists, spiritualists don't aspire for this. Then there's salokya, to live on the same planet as the Supreme Lord. Samipya, to have a relationship which is very, very intimate with the Supreme Lord. Then there's sasti, to have similar opulences as the personality of Godhead. This is in the Vaikuntha Lokas with some form of Vishnu or Narayan, and also in Goloka Vrindavan with Krishna. Then there's also sarupya, to have similar qualities as the Supreme Lord in terms of form. So mukti is also a dynamic state which requires education. So ultimately, we want to reach prema, prema pumata mahan. The greatest goal of life is love of God. And that is discussed in the bhakti scriptures, that through bhakti can Krishna be known. Krishna says, bhaktyamam tvanyaya, that only through bhakti, unalloyed bhakti, gyatum drastum, can I be known, can I be seen, can one enter into the mysteries of my existence. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tattvataha tata mam tatato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has said, only by devotional service can I be understood and can one enter into my kingdom. So love, bhakti, devotion is the highest goal of life. And there is always an eternal flow between Bhagavan and Bhakta. And that transaction is bhakti. And it produces ever increasing bliss. So instead of struggling for sukh, which is connected to the senses, which is like relief from suffering, we should strive for ananda. Because when the sun is out, then there's no darkness, there's no fear. But when we bring out the candle, some light is there, but it is not sufficient to remove the darkness in the heart. So thank you for spending time. See you in the next one. Hare Krishna.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content and to support our work, please visit citti.net.